Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. Happy to have you joining us here on episode 20. We are almost fully legal, so it's great to be back. Jim, how are you?
I am doing well. How about yourself, Tom?
Very good, too. As we hit the, I don't want to call it the home stretch of fall, but it kind of feels like it's the home stretch of fall. Late October into November. Thanksgiving's around the corner. Big Ten football starts this weekend. That speaks to my heart. I know you love your Wisconsin Badgers. So, yeah. And don't they play like a Friday game in one of these first 2 weeks?
This Friday, yeah. They play tomorrow night against Illinois.
There we go.
Who does Michigan play this weekend?
Minnesota. It's the primetime game on Saturday night on ABC. So
that'll be a good game.
Go Blue. Yep.
Nebraska,
very excited.
Which is where I live, plays Ohio State because apparently the Big Ten commissioner was not happy with Nebraska's whining about postponing the season. So They go Ohio State in week 1 as their penance, I think. But
yes. And for all the listeners that have joined us in the first 60 minutes, welcome to the new Two Spot Monkeys, where we only talk college football.
That's right.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
You never know what's going to happen here. Hey, thank you to everybody who does listen. I glanced this morning for the first time in a few weeks at our listens counts, and we're certainly not breaking any records in the podcast world, and we don't intend to. Not counting last week's show, which was a little down in listeners for some reason, but our last few episodes before we had that couple of week break there, we were getting the most listens we'd ever had. So thank you to anybody who's found us. I know we've had an email from one, or a message on Facebook from one of our listeners who wants us to do a retro review on a show that neither Tom nor I think we have ever seen, from a UK show back in the early 90s. And we're going to try to get to that, Nick. So we will try to get that on the schedule, maybe in November somewhere. We haven't really planned out that far ahead. But if you got something you want us to talk about too, shoot us a message on Facebook, on Twitter. We also have a twоспotmonkeys@gmail.com email address. So if you would like to hear us talk about something, whether it's current, retro, fantasy wrestling, fantasy booking, whatever you might want to hear us do, let us know. Because really, this show is about you guys. As much as Tom and I do this for our own enjoyment and edification, we also want somebody to listen to it every once in a while. So if there's something you want to hear us talk about, let us know. We will try to get it in the schedule. Well, Tom, should we jump into things?
We should. And I just didn't. It feels like it's been more than a week since we last connected. I know it's not been more than a week, but it just that's the nature of the busyness of just life sometimes.
Life is, yes.
So thankful that we can spend time recording and talking about wrestling.
Absolutely. And you're right about it feeling like the home stretch of fall. Halloween Havoc's around the corner. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Hell in a Cell around the corner. We'll talk about that. It got cold here this week. I don't know about in Michigan, but it definitely, today I think the high is like 41. So they're starting to talk about that S word that I don't really like talking about in October. Reminded me that I need to totally shut my sprinkler system down even though I didn't run it all summer, and my grass has shown it. I need to get that shut down for the winter. So it's here. Fall is here. So let's talk about fall wrestling rather than my sprinkler system and college football, which we've now, in the first 4 minutes of this, talked about all sorts of things except wrestling. The G1 Climax came to a conclusion a little over a week ago, or a little under a week ago. I'm sorry, last weekend. And Kota Ibushi is your G1 Climax winner, and will go on at Wrestle Kingdom, which again was announced as a 2-day affair on January 4th and 5th. I meant to look ahead because last year I kind of felt like the reason they did that was because the 4th and 5th fell on a Saturday and Sunday. But they again are doing a 2-day affair, and it's a Monday, Tuesday this year. So that'll be interesting. I think you could see some people who have Monday off, perhaps, although New Year's Day is, I don't know. It'll be weird. Maybe I'll take those days off so I can sit at home and watch Wrestle Kingdom. But Wrestle Kingdom coming up in January, Kota Ibushi will challenge whomever the IWGP Heavyweight and most likely Intercontinental Champion is at that point. Currently Tetsuya Naito, and boy, that matchup seems to make a whole lot of sense. Tom and I talked a little bit before we hit record, and I probably should have seen that coming. But if you remember back to our New Japan picks, both Tom and I believe, had Jay White winning the finals. Sonata, I believe, was who you had Jay White going over.
Yep.
and Evil was who I had him going over, neither of which happened. Sonata did make the finals, though, so Tom did well to pick one of the finalists. I got neither of them, which, if you paid attention to our picks over the last few months, pretty much sounds right. So, really, if you're in a pick'em, you should wait until Tom and I do pick'ems, and then just go the opposite of what I'm talking about, because really, I don't know what I'm doing, obviously. Tom, what are your thoughts on Ibushi and anything else? Obviously, there was a major storyline coming out of the last Block A night as well that we can talk about, maybe too. But what are your thoughts on Ibushi winning the G1?
Yeah, I've yet to watch the match, but I wanted to be current for our conversation today. So I did go through and get familiar with the results and how everything played out. And it's interesting, like when you make pick'ems, your heart and your head conflict, right? And then when you watch it play out in real time, some of that falls into the background. Like I knew when I was watching the show, and I had stayed spoiler free really up until last weekend's shows came and went, and life took us in different directions, and I just couldn't find the time to catch up on that product, among other products for that matter. But yet I spent time watching the Detroit Lions. At least they won. I digress. I like the outcome. I wish, like to your point, I wish I would have been able to think about or see that coming. I think my lack of being current on all of the New Japan stories, was a factor there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's not a statement to say that I would have, had I been fully engrossed in all of the storylines, that I would have made a different choice. But I liked it. And we talked again before we recorded, Ibushi now becomes the third competitor to win back-to-back G1s since the inception of the tournament about 30 years ago. People have won more than 3 times overall, but there have been now 3 back-to-back winners. So that's exciting. That's historic, and it's been about a decade and a half since the last time that happened. So excited for Wrestle Kingdom. My goal, not related to the G1, but related to New Japan, is to now not let what happened when the New Japan Cup ended with my viewership of New Japan. I want to stay connected. I'm going to go back. I'm going to watch the final 2 nights of the blocks plus the final show here over the next couple of days, and I just want to remain current. So, and again, building towards, of course, World Tag League, which those competitors are coming up, and what I'm really excited for, Best of the Super Juniors. And if they were able to bring guys over for the G1, I'm really hopeful they're able to bring some guys over for Best of Super Juniors too.
Absolutely, and I think, and we've talked about this, I think, on the show before too. I hope they're able to get some people over maybe for that tag league as well, because the tag division it needs a little work. So I'm kind of curious what the tag teams will be, and since they're going every other night with the shows, so the tournaments are going to have their first night kickoff. Both tournaments, if I understood right, will be on the first night, and the last night, the finals night. But other than that, the tournaments, the tag league will be one night, then the next show will be Best of the Super Juniors, and back and forth. I'm kind of thinking about 10 competitors in each makes sense. It gives you 5 matches each night. Plus they'll probably throw a Young Lions match on there. So you got 6 matches, which is kind of what they did with the G1 as well. So it'd be interesting to see. If you asked me to name 10 tag teams right now that could happen, I'd be putting a lot of kind of randomness together to get there. I'm hoping maybe the Guerrillas of Destiny can get back over there. They've been here in the U.S. and working in the New Japan USA strong shows that have been going on New Japan World, which I tried to start watching way back. I watched the New Japan USA Cup, but other than that, I've fallen so far behind on those, I'm not even going to try to catch back up. But the Guerrillas, it'd be nice to see them get back over there, and some other folks as well. So be interesting to see how that goes. And of course, we have Power Struggle coming up as well on November 7th, I think it is. So Power Struggle will set the tone for both the World Tag League, the Best of the Super Juniors, and really for some of what we'll see at Wrestle Kingdom as well. Naito is facing Evil that night for the titles. The Never Openweight title is on the line between Minoru Suzuki and Shingo, and a number of other matches as well, including a tag match between Will Ospreay and his new friend, the Great Okan, who you may have read about, Tom, since you haven't seen that take place just yet. It's worth watching. It's really a well done angle. Will Ospreay going heel. I actually think this could work really well. I think splitting Ospreay off from Chaos is a good idea, especially if they really want to get behind him. And I think Okada is teaming with, I'm trying to remember. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's
Show. Yeah.
Again, so it's kind of an odd pairing there. I mean, they're both Chaos members, but it's a little bit weird. But I'm looking forward to Ospreay as a heel, and the Great Okan is a big dude. I haven't seen him work yet. I've been meaning to go on YouTube and catch a couple of his matches and that sort of thing, see what he can do. I know he was a young lion in the New Japan. Tomoyuki Oka, I believe, was his name when he was a young lion. Something close to that. Oka was the last name. He's now the Great Okan, and a big dude. So it was pretty impressive. So be interesting to see where that goes. It sounds like maybe they're calling themselves the Empire. Was something I had seen on Twitter, I think. Now, I don't know if that was somebody giving them a name or if Ospreay has said something that I missed, naming them that. Be interesting to see, too, do they add more to that team? New Japan sure loves its factions. So, does Will Ospreay kind of get his own faction going now, which I think certainly could be a thing that happens. B. Priestley as well in that grouping. Not a lot of women usually showing up in New Japan, so interesting to see that, and interesting to see if that leads to anything more in the ring, because New Japan, their parent company, does own Stardom as well. So, do we start seeing some women in New Japan? That would be interesting. New Japan, any other thoughts, Tom?
Well, I just wondered, again, not having watched everything play out in real time, or even like digging deep on kind of reading through the results, anything in terms of worth conversating on as it relates to the Bullet Club and dissension there? Because there was kind of like the building storyline of like Jay White and potentially Evil and Kenta, and just kind of who might be the true leader of the Bullet Club and things of that nature.
It seems like it's still just a slow burn there.
Okay.
On that, and I'm wondering if Power Struggle and or maybe even the Tag League, if they get involved, if those three gentlemen are somehow teamed with other people for the Tag League, or maybe two of them team up for the Tag League, that could be interesting too. None of them are juniors, so I don't see obviously anything going on there with those three, but I think it's still just a slow burn of that dissension in the ranks, but not outward hostility yet. If you ask me, I think at Wrestle Kingdom there's going to be some sort of a blow off to that, whether it involves all three of them or just two of them or some sort of a faction match or something. There's going to be a blow off coming at Wrestle Kingdom.
I think I would lean towards the idea of a potential Jay White Evil match at Wrestle Kingdom. I know that Kenta is defending his briefcase against Tanahashi for the U.S. Intercontinental title. I don't see Tanahashi winning that. Maybe I'm wrong. And I wonder if Moxley's return to New Japan, just with the AEW schedule, makes sense that it would happen for maybe the first Wrestle Kingdom show. Again, I don't know how they would do all of that, because I have to imagine that Dynamite would be live that Wednesday, and I would think they would want him to quarantine after traveling if that is the case. So who knows, right? But I could see the top 5 matches or top 4 matches at Wrestle Kingdom over the 2 nights being, assuming Naito doesn't lose the title, Naito versus Ibushi, Jay White Evil, Kenta Moxley, Okada Ospreay.
Yep.
And hopefully Shingo in a high-profile match. I don't know.
Right.
Or
keep beating that drum until we get it.
Yeah. Or again, the tag title. Something important with the tag titles. Again, it depends on obviously who's involved in the tag league, and obviously they'll whoever wins that will be challenging Zach and Tai Chi. Yep. So we'll see.
Yeah, because they are not defending their tag titles, I don't believe, at Power Struggle. So you would think they should hold those, unless they are in the tag league and defend them in every match. But that hasn't traditionally been what's happened in the tag league. So they might be in it, but they won't be defending it. It's not going to get crazy like that. So New Japan, still a lot of fun. They've got the Road to Power Struggle starting next week, I want to say. There's a 6-man title match on that as well, and some other stuff. So worth checking out what's going on in New Japan. They were were fun shows, those last few shows to watch, and see kind of where they're headed.
And the quality of wrestling throughout the entire tournament, both blocks, my word, like so enjoyable, so enjoyable. It's one of those things where, as I've spent time, I haven't watched anything New Japan related, I think in the last 3 or 4 days. And that's the first time probably in the last 3 weeks where I haven't at least once a day, one match, minimum one day, if not more. But it's kind of like the whole, like the taste thing, right? Like you can't just eat steak every single day because you're going to burn yourself out on steak. So even though like you can't hold a candle between New Japan and AEW and WWE or NXT because they're not intended to be the same. Like I've been able to like cleanse my palate, good, bad, or otherwise, with other products by kind of taking a little bit of a breath from New Japan, and I'm excited to get back into catching up and being current, even though I know what happened.
Yeah, it's definitely worth seeing. Absolutely, and I agree. Companies are all different for a reason, and that's good. You and I are part of the sect of folks who want to consume everything we possibly can in the wrestling world. We know that there are lots of folks who, kind of like one flavor or the other, and that's okay. As long as it doesn't get into the silliness that you get on social media of, I like this and you're dumb because you like that. Let people like things. It's fine. Some people are probably really into Retribution. We'll talk about them later. We all know how I feel about things there. That's okay. If they enjoy it, cool. Some people love the 24/7 stuff. I like it for what it is. Would I want a whole show of that kind of goofiness and that kind of wackiness? No, I don't. That's not my thing. But some people do. So it's okay. Let people like what they like. It's not affecting, hey, what anybody else likes doesn't affect what I watch. So it's all good. Speaking of a company that's a little more in the New Japan line of competition and that sort of thing is the Ring of Honor Pure Title. We always try to update that since that's been going on. Last week's show, Tracy Williams defeated Fred Yehai in a really good match between two former Catchpoint tag team partners or stablemates, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then Josh the Goods Woods defeated PJ Black to move on to the semis as well. So the semifinals are Jay Lethal versus Tracy Williams and Jonathan Gresham versus Josh Woods, which will happen this weekend. And we also are going to get a grudge match between Matt Taven and Vincent, which I have to be honest, I think is going to be more angle than match because I think you're going to build towards some sort of a stipulation match at what I assume will be Final Battle. Now that they're running these taped shows, whether they tape Final Battle or they actually do run it live, in front of some fans or no fans like they're doing the TV shows, we'll see. But they're at least hinting towards Final Battle. The words Final Battle have been said a few times on the road to Final Battle. Ian Riccaboni has said that a couple times. So it makes me think they're at least making plans for some sort of a Final Battle show, which is good. I'm excited for that. And since they did update things back in the spring, where Honor Club with your $10 a month Honor Club membership now includes the pay-per-views as well, where before it was only if you paid the $120 a year, which is the same price, coincidentally, although they're guaranteed to have your $120 if you do it for the year versus you can cancel it at any point with the $10 a month. If that's still going to be the case, I will definitely be jumping in at least for that month to make sure that I get Final Battle. For $10. Heck yeah, I'm going to watch Final Battle, whatever they set up. It'll be interesting to see how they build towards it, though, because a lot of the international stars have not been able to come back yet. So that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. But I don't think either of us are totally shocked. But what are you thinking about those semis of Lethal and Williams and Woods and Gresham?
Yeah, I expect really good matches to come out of that. I'm still sticking with my picks. If we were to say, okay, let's rank the matches or the potential finals matchups, confidence points, all 4 scenarios. Number 4 confidence points or the most confidence points I would give still sticks with a Lethal Gresham final, and Williams Woods would be the one I would give a 1 to. I just can't imagine that being the final. The only other thing I could potentially see would be Williams Gresham, which I know we talked when we did our preview and kind of walked through the brackets a couple weeks back. We were both, or at least I think I was for sure, kind of maybe thinking that could be a possibility. But again, if you're Ring of Honor and you're looking to kind of reestablish this title whomever wins, whether it be potentially Lethal or Gresham. I think that's the match that you have in the finals to really capture the history, the value, the lineage. Lethal being a former champion adds a lot to that. Gresham, in his post-match promos after the first two matches he's had, which I was able to see, speaks to just this is what he wants from Ring of Honor. This is the pure title, the pure wrestling is what he wants the image of Ring of Honor to be, or it's his perception of what the image of Ring of Honor should be. So that's kind of the way I see that. And again, if all goes according to kind of the schedule, that match will be taking place on Halloween night for me, at least, because of how Sinclair airs in my local market, on the local affiliate. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a tweet from Ring of Honor announcer. I almost said Ring of Honor announcer Bobby Cruz, where they just came out of the bubble last weekend and they had taped another 8 weeks. So back to your comments about Final Battle and what and how that comes to be. Interestingly, that you would think 8 weeks is all of November and much of December. So does that all lead to a Final Battle show, or is Final Battle intermixed? Were those matches that are going to be what happened at Final Battle intermixed into that, and will they be part of a synchronous show that they air at some point?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and all the more it makes me wonder, what are they going to do towards Final Battle? If Roosh can't come in, if Dragon Lee can't come in, you've got your two main titles, although the pure title obviously we'll get into that mix here in a week or so, that aren't available. And your pure champion very well could also be one half of your tag champions. And you've done nothing yet, although I expect there will be build in these next shows. And I hadn't seen that it was 8 episodes. That's interesting to know. I knew they had taped more, but I didn't know how much more they had taped. And they were talking about doing tapings again in December, I heard, maybe even outside of Maryland, but we'll see. Yeah, and I'm sure the way the world changes in the next 4 to 6 weeks will be very important as that decision gets made. Those decisions get made. Yeah, I'm with you though. As far as to get back to the tournament, the only thing that makes me wonder is they've been so blatant about it on the show, saying that Lethal and Gresham expect themselves to be in the finals. And they even played up this past weekend how Lethal kind of doesn't even care. He doesn't even really know who Tracy Williams is. And so there's a little bit of me that wonders, is Williams going to get a roll up or something and end up with that Williams Gresham final? And then you tell a story out of that where Gresham is kind of needling at Lethal that, hey, you didn't even make the finals. You were the one that ruined the chance for us to be in the finals. But as we've proven in the head-to-head competition, I can overthink things. So I could be, that I don't expect that, but if it happens, part of me will be like, well, I thought of it. Haha. I expect it still to be Lethal and Gresham. Although, like I said, sometimes when wrestling companies are so blatantly obvious about what it seems like they're going to do, they zig when you think they're going to zag. So I could see them doing something. I agree with you. If they do something like that, it's much more likely that it's Tracy Williams over Lethal than it is Josh Woods over Jonathan Gresham. I still think Gresham wins this title. I just don't. They'd have to tell a really interesting story to get it on any of the other 3 people, frankly, including Jay Lethal. And maybe they can. Who knows? But I just think that's, if you want to establish that title, that's the guy you put it on right now. And you let him have a decent run where he has really great pure matches with a lot of the people who are in the tournament and other people who can come in as well and have that style. Please don't give PCO a pure title match. I love PCO, but no, that's not what goes on. It also looks like we may, on that finals show on Halloween night, I'm thinking maybe that is where we get the 6-man tag. EC3 made his promo debut, I guess, this last week, and then had a confrontation with Shane Taylor and the Sons of Savagery, or Sons of Savage, whatever their tag name is. Moses and the other
Khan.
Thank you. Like, I couldn't come up with it. Moses and Khan, so And then the Briscoes came to back up EC3, so it seems like maybe a 6-man tag there. That certainly doesn't seem like a final battle match to me, but it does seem like a really nice TV match where you get EC3 in for the first time. Interesting that it's in a 6-man and not a singles, but it'll be interesting to see. I kind of like this darker, serious EC3 that we're seeing, and not playing up the rich, snobby Dixie Carter's nephew character that started in Impact. And even though they never called him Dixie Carter's nephew in WWE, he just kind of carried that character forward. I like to see that he's changing it up a little bit. So be interesting to see in ring then what does that mean too. I haven't watched Impact because I don't get access through I have Hulu Live. So I don't get Impact. So I haven't seen any of his stuff in Impact. I don't think he's had a match yet. I think the pay-per-view this weekend is his first match there. So I'll be interesting to see. I've always liked EC3. So I'm interested to see what he does here in Ring of Honor as well. And see where the company goes. I've loved the Pure Tournament, but I'm excited to get back to opening the company up as a whole and getting other stories going as well on these shows that'll start airing in November. So that'll be good. I think this has been a great reintroduction to Ring of Honor. I think they've done a really nice job with this tournament. But I'm excited to see where it goes post-tournament as well. Any other Ring of Honor thoughts?
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see, again, much of their titles outside of the Pure title are tied up, right? So you would think like you're going to have to do something outside the box if you're not focusing on championships for whatever develops on TV and then towards a final battle event of some sort.
I mean, I think they've done a nice job with the Matt Taven and Vincent storyline, but I don't think that can be your main event for Final Battle. I just don't. And from the fantasy wrestling side, I often bring up and throw in things about the fantasy wrestling league that Tom and I are in. I've had Bandito sitting on my roster this entire half year, and it's just killing me because I think I probably should just drop him at some point here because I just don't think he's coming back. But I also know that the minute I drop him, they'll announce him for Final Battle. So be great. I guess that's one match, so whatever. We'll see. I finally did drop Chris Hero because he apparently maybe Thanos snapped and he's gone. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened to Chris Hero, but I really thought we'd see him again when he left WWE. But as of yet, no Chris Hero. Anyways,
that breaks my heart because I'm a huge Chris Hero fan.
You and I both, and I hung on to him in that league for a long time, thinking he's going to show up somewhere, even if it was on that, the I'm going to put air quotes around NWA United Wrestling Network pay-per-view thing. I haven't seen any of it. That's airing on Tuesday nights where they have had some NWA title matches. I thought that would be a perfect spot for him to show up. I'd much rather him show up in AEW or Ring of Honor because I'd get to see it more often. But I thought the NWA makes sense for a guy like Chris Hero. Yeah, nothing yet. And again, I dropped him, so he'll show up next week. Welcome to my fantasy sports life. All right. Halloween Havoc is coming up next week. We're not going to do a head-to-head on this because there's only 3 matches, which coincidentally is only 1 match less than Hell in a Cell as announced. But there's probably more that got announced in last night's or at least got teased in last night's NXT show, which neither Tom or I have seen yet. So we'll take some stabs at what we think might happen. But the 3 matches announced so far are 2 spin the wheel, make the deal matches. It looks like the wheel might be on the video screen, which I really hate if they're not going to put a real wheel together. Put a real wheel together so that I believe for a moment that it's not totally rigged.
You'd have to think that it's in storage in Stamford, Connecticut. So, I mean, ship it down to Florida.
Of course, the problem is, they probably furloughed everybody who worked in the warehouse. But, yeah, it's got to be somewhere, right? I mean, come on. We'll see. Maybe that was just to promo it last week. But spin the wheel, make the deal. North American title match between Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano, and a spin the wheel, make the deal women's title match between Io Shirai and Candice LeRae. So rematches of the last takeover, and both you and I thought that at least LeRae was going to win the women's title at that show, and both of us picked Damian Priest, but weren't going to be totally shocked if Gargano won the North American title. Before there is a 3rd match announced too that we can talk about in a minute. Before we get there, though, Does anything about this change your thought? Is this where the Garganos finally get some titles, or what are you thinking, Tom?
Yeah, very likely, at least from my initial thoughts. I mean, depending on which gimmick matches come up on the wheel, and you are correct, right now it's been fully digital or fully on the video screen. And I wish I had a screen grab of all of the options, because there were quite a few. I want to say at least a dozen. I remember like seeing like Trick or Treat Street Fight, Chamber of Horrors match, which would be cool, but not for a singles. Like I think of like the pretty horrendous Chamber of Horrors match in like '91, where like Abdullah got fried in the end.
That was terrible.
Yeah, but like that would be kind of fun-ish, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's 30 years later, so you could change things up a little bit. They had blindfold match on there. They had I said Trick or Treat Street Fight, Chamber of Horrors, casket match. Again, it's going to be different for each of these matches, but without kind of having all those options before me, I don't know.
There's a Weapons Wild match. I don't have a really good.
There's a Shotzi's Choice match.
Choice.
Which for me.
Brawl.
What was that one? I'm sorry.
Boiler Room Brawl.
Okay, yeah, yep.
And a TLS match.
Tables, ladders.
Shotzi? I don't know. What do we get?
One thought I have, because Candice got the gimmick from Indy Hartwell and used it to KO Shotzi to win her shot at her rematch here when it was that number one contenders match a few weeks ago on NXT. I wonder if that is where the wheel lands for the women's match, and Shotzi were to put herself in and make it a three-way. Not that I don't want another singles match between Candice and EO, but you do this, and you could go that route and have Shotzi actually be the one that eats the pinfall this time by Candice, and the title switches, and EO never gets pinned. So just a wondering, or just kind of maybe an outside shot there of a backdoor way to get the belt off of Shirai without having her eat the pinfall.
Yeah, and I did find a clearer shot. So here are all the options for you, quick, Tom. Just if any of them, change anything for you. I like your idea on Shotzi's Choice there. So you have Shotzi's Choice. You have a Weapons Wild match, Trick or Street Fight, that TLS. There's a skull on top of it, so maybe it's tables, ladders, and skulls, which would be kind of dumb. Coal miner's glove on a pole, which of course was the original spin the wheel make the deal match that it landed on, which again, back then I thought of all the options, that's what you picked. Blindfold match, those are always terrible. Casket match, the Chamber of Horrors, a biker's chain match. It's interesting that it's a biker's chain, I guess Shotzi. Buried Alive match, the Devil's Playground match, which looks like a steel cage that's on fire. The Boiler Room Brawl, and then that's it. Shotzi's Choice I'm back to. So Shotzi's Choice makes the most sense for the women, certainly. For the men, boy, you could pick any of those. Weapons Wild, the Street Fight. I kind of want to see what a Devil's Playground match is, because like I said, it looks like a cage that's on fire, and that would be something to see. But Kane isn't wrestling in this match, so it doesn't feel like that's probably going to happen. I'm thinking it's probably one of the kind of street fight-ish things, or maybe even the chain match, where they can say Gargano can't run away kind of thing. I think Indy Hartwell probably plays large in both of these matches. And kudos to her. I'm glad to see they're doing a little something with Indy Hartwell. Talented lady in the ring, and starting to give her a little bit of a push, perhaps. I mean, we haven't seen it in the ring just yet. Maybe there was something last night. But I'm glad they're doing something with her besides her just kind of being the Xia Li type, although they're doing something with Xia Li, obviously, too, but kind of the random type who they just send out there to lose to whoever the, female is that they're pushing at the time. So good to see. I like to see them, deepening that roster and giving more women more chances and reasons for being on the show rather than just oh, we have a women's match and we're going to put Shotzi over, so let's run Hartwell out there, or Casey Catanzaro, or people like that who I think are talented and just need a little something to do, a little focus. So I'm excited to see Hartwell get that opportunity.
Well, and to that end, obviously the women's division now is incredibly stacked in NXT. We've got the third match announced, at least for where we're up to date in terms of what's aired on TV and what we're aware of, and that being Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Gonzalez, which really has had a nice build. And it's been so interesting watching Rhea Ripley following WrestleMania, because clearly she was on the moon in terms of her push, and deservedly so, and has that amazing match with Charlotte. And I don't think it was wrong that Charlotte won the title and everything that's followed since then. But Rhea, middling is the term I'm using, and I don't want it to be negative, but she's kind of been in these middling feuds, right? Where, like, I would imagine, and justifiably so, Rhea should deserve or should be in the title picture. And maybe that's still to come. But again, it's been these one-offs, or these Dakota Kai issues, or these Mercedes Martinez issues, and now it's Raquel Gonzalez, and then of course you've got Ember Moon returning, and you've got Toni Storm who's returned. I mean, my, you are not at a loss for people who are gunning for the title, whomever the champion is, if it's Io Shirai or not. And how do you give each of them equal kind of spotlight or opportunity to shine without someone getting lost in the mix there?
Totally agreed. And I wonder if maybe after this match with Raquel, especially if they somehow would have Raquel win the match, through Dakota Kai interfering or something, I wonder if it's time for Rhea to move to SmackDown or Raw. There are plenty of women that can carry that division now in NXT. I think Rhea's done about all she can in NXT. I was a little surprised she didn't move after WrestleMania, to be honest. And now that everything's taping, pretty much all in the same general area, not the same total location. I wonder, is it time that Rhea moves? I think she would be a huge shot in the arm to either SmackDown or Raw's women's divisions. Even with the draft, they're just not very deep right now.
Yeah, and I was actually quite surprised with the draft. I know we'll talk about kind of the WWE SmackDown and Raw kind of side of things when we talk about Hell in a Cell, but Sasha and Bayley were heading towards what we would imagine would be like the blow off of all blow offs, even though they feuded in the past, and it's kind of all coming full circle in a new vein now. But they're both on SmackDown, so no matter what happens Sunday, they're both on the same brand. So you can't get too far away from the person that you're culminating a feud with. So yeah, I would advocate. Not that Raw doesn't need also an infusion too, but Rhea going to SmackDown and being the challenger for whomever wins the match at Hell in a Cell would make a lot of sense to me. If that's the path they want to go on.
Agreed. Yeah, the draft was, not to get off on draft, but the draft was weird because you didn't end a whole lot of things by splitting anybody up. You moved a couple of feuds from SmackDown to Raw or Raw to SmackDown. And even when you did split people up, Otis appeared on Raw this week. So
I think the last week, like the season premieres were like the last opportunity for people to kind of make like a one-off, but we'll see. Who knows, right? Because like we also, whenever they want to pull it out of their back pocket, they have whatever it was called, the transitional appearance waiver or whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah. Superstar's Choice. I don't know. Yeah, it's got some name. The swap that they can do 3 times a year or whatever it is.
Right.
Which they can change that rule too. And let's be honest, they will.
So I'm thinking back on Halloween Havoc. Anything else that you think you'd like to see? Like, of course, we don't know totally what happened on NXT last night. We did have a spoiler that came about, which was interesting because based on what was advertised and based on the outcome there, something went on to get us to that end. I would say Dexter Lumis, Cameron Grimes, based on what's been happening on NXT, makes a lot of sense. And that to me is like, a great singles match on paper, doesn't need anything else, but could easily add a gimmick to that without a doubt. But anything else for you? Again, that's kind of where my mind was kind of focused with where I'm thinking about with NXT, and again, not knowing.
Right. Not knowing what we see from last night. I think Grimes versus Loomis makes a ton of sense. I think perhaps something with the cruiserweight title. Maybe we see Swerve and Escobar again, or something along those lines. That doesn't seem to be a dead issue just yet. Although I think it's interesting to see, and we'll see where it leads. Last week on NXT UK, Jordan Devlin cut a promo about how he is the true cruiserweight champion and that Escobar is a sham. So at some point, when they can maybe get the UK guys back over here or get Escobar over there or something, it seems like they're going to head to some sort of a unification. I wondered if because there were some accusations about Jordan Devlin in the speaking out situation that happened with women coming out talking about some pretty terrible accusations of some of the men in wrestling. I know Devlin had some accusations made against him. I wondered if maybe they would just quietly forget that he was the cruiserweight champion at some point, and maybe even he wouldn't work for them anymore. But clearly that's not the case. But that won't happen by Halloween Havoc. Certainly it doesn't seem. And perhaps something with the tag titles that we know there's some sort of chicanery that happened last night. So maybe there's something as a return there as well. I feel like Kyle O'Reilly should do something if he's cleared, because we're likely to not have an NXT title match at Halloween Havoc. Balor's certainly not, I don't think, going to be ready by next week, again, unless something happens. So it feels like something there, perhaps. But I don't know who Kyle would face unless it's some sort of a number one contenders match. And then who's it against? I just don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting something from NXT, but I think it'll be fun. It's going to be not a takeover, but yet, a branded show. So I think that's kind of fun. I'm sure they'll have all sorts of pumpkins and fog and all sorts of fun stuff in the Capitol Wrestling Center next week for that. And Shotzi will do some crazy stuff too, I'm sure.
And the Capitol Wrestling Center has definitely grown on me. Again, I know we talked about it when we talked about the response a little bit delayed for the takeover, but the TV that followed, like it felt a little bit more comfortable. I liked actually they opened things up. They had Breezango sitting on the stage at one point watching the contenders match. They had Shotzi reveal the wheel in that kind of that same space. They're really being creative with that space. You have to imagine this is the same kind of setup. It's modified where they were doing TV from the launch of the pandemic all the way through the birth of the Thunderdome. But it doesn't even look like that. It doesn't even look the same. It doesn't even feel the same, which is nice. It's a fresh coat of paint. I always want to mix that up based on something to wrestle with, a fresh paint of coat. And I'm glad I don't, but I always have to slow myself down to not put my tongue in my foot in my mouth. My tongue belongs in my mouth. The one other thing,
Anatomy with the 2-spot monkeys.
There you go. Just that whole Ridge Holland injury, how disappointing, and how again, the timing of the universe. That was the same week that the Dak Prescott injury happened, right. And they appear. I haven't read or looked into it deeper, but they appear to be very similar. And it was actually really weird when I watched it on TV. Again, you saw it in real time. And you heard the wail he let out. It looked like it was the right leg, but it was the left leg, which was really interesting.
I think it ended up, if I remember right, being like the knee on one leg and the ankle on the other, or the leg on the other kind of thing. Yeah, it was, man, what terrible timing for that guy. Obviously he was about to get a push to the moon in NXT. Anytime you're involved with something with the Undisputed Era, you're not going to be in the opening match, most likely. Or if you are, it's going to be a big opening match, which they do a lot of times too. So, you're not at the bottom of the card anymore at that point. You're getting a good push, and what terrible timing for that guy. Here's hoping that 6 or 8 months down the road, or whenever he's back and able to pick up where he left off, wherever Adam Cole ends up by that point, because 6 or 8 months down the road, who knows if he'll still be in NXT. you've got some story to tell there yet, depending on how they turn that story now, because obviously they're not dropping it. Was evidenced by last week, and they're still talking about who paid Rich Holland and that sort of thing. Maybe we get some more on that this week, or even at Halloween Havoc. There's some things that I saw in that spoiler that make me wonder, but they may or may not be connected. So I don't want to draw any connections until I know. And it'll be another day or two before I get to see NXT probably. So,
well, and on the same lane of thinking about follow up, I think Retribution is up next. Am I not mistaken?
It is our weekly dose of Retribution.
And while I'm not current on Raw, I believe they did something, or at least I saw on social media they did do something full circle. So WWE writers, thanks for listening to Two Spot Monkeys, because I think you heard me, and you responded. Jim, fill in the blanks for me on what I think I know and what I don't know.
Yes, you do. Mustafa Ali did, in a really good promo, frankly, did reveal that he was the SmackDown hacker all along. Whether he was or wasn't, who knows? But they did at least tie that piece up. I've read that wasn't necessarily, when the SmackDown hacker thing started, they were not planning Retribution. So we can't give them credit for super long-term planning. But they used it to tie up that loose end, and said that he'd been watching, and, that was why he recruited the people that he has, because they were being forgotten and left behind and not being treated fairly and all of those kinds of things. So kudos and thank you for listening, WWE. We've got some other great ideas. If you want to go back in the catalog of the last 19 episodes that you probably listened to, a lot around Retribution, frankly. So we could probably help you with that a little bit. Like, don't put stupid masks on people, but you're still doing that. So thank you for not putting one on Mustafa Ali, though. That would have been really stupid. So my thing with Retribution this week, and I feel like it's my weekly, coffee talk section on Retribution. So the Fiend and Alexa Bliss started the show off in the ring, and we're surrounded by Retribution. They did not move. They kept staring forward. And then the lights went up. Mustafa Ali put his hand up like he was going to do the lights out thing, but he got his hand up. The lights went out before he did this. And I thought, oh, did they blow it? Like the timing. But you audibly hear Ali, I think it's him, say, what happened? So it's not him that turned out the lights. It was the Fiend. And then when the lights come back up, Fiend and Alexa are gone. Retribution then has a 8-man tag against the Hurt Business, which they have T-Bar tap out to the frickin' full Nelson in their second televised match, I guess. So they have a terrible DQ finish in the first match, which I have read, to go back to that from a month or so ago, I have read that the referee made that call because they've been told if they see something illegal, they're supposed to call the DQ, and that the man outside of the ring hitting the man inside of the ring is illegal. So therefore he called the DQ. I still think he could have turned his head or something. It was terrible. So you do that in their first match, and on their second match ever, they lose. And you have one of their two big guys tap out. Are you trying to bury the thing? Because now I'm starting to think you are. And if that's not bad enough, after he taps out, the lights go red. We get the crazy music for the Fiend. The Fiend comes out and beats the tar out of all of Retribution and puts the mandible claw on T-Bar. Have you seen T-Bar, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you seen the mask that T-Bar wears?
Isn't the mouth covered?
It is.
Okay. Yeah.
How in the hell does the Fiend hit his hand into T-Bar's mouth? And T-Bar sells it like he's taking the claw. I mean, good for Dominic Dijakovic. That's who it is. Spoiler alert. Good for T-Bar. T-Bone.
Supernatural powers.
Oh my goodness.
So is the Fiend a babyface now?
It seems like it. Yes.
Okay.
Although he kind of threatened the Hurt Business, but who, is the Hurt Business a babyface or a heel faction? Later on, they beat up Titus O'Neil for seemingly no reason, so apparently they're still heels. I get that the line is blurred between heels and baby faces, but it doesn't have to be confusingly blurred. I do think the Fiend is gone babyface, although they still talk about how scared everybody is of him, so that feels heelish. Alexa has acted more heelish when she's been in the under the trance of the Fiend, which I do really like that pairing. And I think it's really freshened Alexa up in a lot of ways too. And I've always been a big Alexa Bliss fan. So I'm glad to see her getting featured in that role. So they did all of that stupid stuff with Retribution, but then they really did Mustafa Ali's promo later in the show. Again, as you catch up on Raw, Tom, you'll see it, but he did a really good promo, talked about how he sat at home for months because they didn't think they could make a buck off a guy named Mustafa Ali. I like that line. I don't want them to go too far down that road and make it a race or ethnicity thing. But I think the line helps set up why he's mad at WWE, why he wants to tear WWE down, that sort of thing. And it was just a line. They moved on. It worked for me. And his passion worked for me. Mustafa Ali, I've never really seen him cut a serious promo before. You know, it's always been very short things in the back that we've seen from him. The dude can talk, and he can go in the ring. I think if they're careful with this, Ali can become a player for them, but they got to stop doing the other dumb stuff with this faction. And Ali, I wish when the Fiend attacked Retribution, I wish Ali would have stepped back, like up the aisleway a little bit, because he's the leader, and let his minions get the crap kicked out of him. But he got thrown over the top rope too and beat up just like everybody else. So it's just like our friend Greg, I think, posted on the board that we're a part of and said, you know, they really have seemed to take them from this scary invading faction to a jobber team pretty quickly. But then they flipped it with this promo. So I don't know. It's the up and down booking of WWE with this Retribution thing. It's like 1 minute they want it to be a big thing, and the next minute it's just kind of a thing on the card. I don't know. It's
I hate to say this, but I think WWE doesn't give their fan base and their viewers enough credit to I think they believe their attention span is shorter than it actually is. So again, you and I obviously call those things out when we, you know, reflect on what we've watched. And again, I think we have a keener eye towards all wrestling that we watch. But there are fans that are like us out there. It's not just you and I. There's, you know, and that's the thing, to think that WWE doesn't have other people who do that. And maybe they're not the vocal majority of the fan base, because I can tell you just the same. I encounter people when I'm wearing a wrestling shirt out in public that very much are like think it's real. And that's fine. I don't want to tell you it's not real. If you are able to disconnect from the reality of life, which can be tough at times, and you anchor yourself to the reality of what WWE is, maybe that's who they're catering to, and they're not catering to you or I.
Yeah, could absolutely be. But it's been frustrating. And
right. That doesn't change that.
Right. And I think it's the fact that I like everybody who's involved in Retribution. You know, Dio Madden being the kind of outlier in that I haven't really seen him in the ring much outside of the little bit that he did on Monday. So can't speak to how good he is in the ring, but he's got size, he's got a great look, even with the stupid Predator mask on.
Any news on Mercedes? Why is she no longer part of the faction?
Nope. And again, unless she showed up last night, we haven't seen her in NXT either. It kind of makes me wonder one of two things. Either one, did she get injured somehow and nobody's reported it? Or is there a COVID situation there perhaps? But they're not even mentioning it. They're not even saying, you know, because you could have very easily had, if she was going to still be a part of it, and maybe by putting Ali in there, maybe you're not going to have her be a part of it because you don't want it to grow into, you know, 97 members, which I can live with. But if she is going to be a part of it, you could have easily had Mustafa Ali say something like, you know, I've sent, let's see, I think Reckoning is what they're calling me, a Yim. So Retaliation, I think, was what they were calling Mercedes. You know, I've sent Retaliation out on a mission, you know, she'll be back in 3 weeks or whatever. And they didn't do that. So yeah, no word on Mercedes. Interesting and disappointing. Although if it means that she eventually comes back to the main roster as Mercedes Martinez, maybe better for her, frankly, in the long run, than being Retaliation as a part of Retribution. Stupid names.
She went the way of Raw Underground, and our feelings on both of those matters can diverge greatly.
Yes, and Raw Underground appears to be done now. We'll see if Dabba-Kato gets to do anything on Raw since he's been drafted there. Why bother having the new guy show up? I don't know. He could have easily been AJ Styles backup this week instead of Jordan. Although Jordan is a huge man. Who knows? Maybe Dabba-Kato will show up yet. Maybe he'll even show up this Sunday at Hell in a Cell. I doubt that, but perhaps he will. Just realizing here that I want that to go away and that to go across the bottom. There we go. We got our nerd ticker head to head for Hell in a Cell. WWE has been gracious in that they have only bothered to announce 4 matches as of Thursday for the show. I do assume we will get more matches Friday night on SmackDown. And maybe, well, let's talk about that real quick. So you're current on SmackDown, is that correct?
I am. Yep.
So, I think on SmackDown, we definitely could see Seth Rollins versus Daniel Bryan. I think that makes a ton of sense for Sunday.
It's super exciting. Who doesn't want to watch that match?
Right. That works for me. I mean, we've seen it a ton, but It's okay. Sign me up. I thought it went really well. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the interplay between them. Frankly, I want to see that more than I want to see Seth versus Dominic for the 900th time in the last 3 months. Now, Seth versus Murphy would be interesting. I think that will be for a split second. They had me on Friday night. For a split second, I thought Murphy was going to join back with Seth Rollins when he came down to the ring. And I thought, I was ready to go off. There was going to be an epic rant on Two Spot Monkeys. Like, you got to freaking be kidding me. And then he tackled him, and I went, okay, all is well in the world. We're now they have to follow up on that with Murphy. And so I hope they do, because that is a guy who is super talented in the ring, has shown a little bit more personality in the last few months. Again, I think somebody they can really do something with if they get behind him for more than a minute and a half, which kind of is their MO. So hopefully that becomes a thing. And Murphy gets a chance here on SmackDown. SmackDown tag titles, you could do something there with the Street Profits.
That's the one area where I think they could have done a whole lot better job in the draft, is refreshing the tag scene. And maybe it's yet to come. I know we're still settling into the changes. And how goofy is it that you just swap titles because you swap brands? I digress. That's not what we're here to talk about. But that goes back to the whole, please give me credit that I'm actually paying attention or that I actually care.
And even better, correct me if I'm wrong, Ziggler and Rude moved over to SmackDown and got the tag title shot on Friday night, right?
And lost.
So we've just moved the same team that they had already beaten over on Raw, and now we brought them to SmackDown and beat them again. Why do I care about Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode at all? They've given me no reason. Not saying they should become the World Tag Champs or anything, but make me think they have a shot. Make me think there's a chance. I don't know. Intercontinental title doesn't seem like they were setting anything totally up there yet. I mean, you had Sammy. Who shoved him down? Why am I drawing a blank, Tom? You had an argument in the back. Somebody shoved him. It happened.
Yeah, I'm not remembering either, unfortunately.
Well, Sammy could defend against the mystery pusher. I don't remember. And somebody's yelling at their iPod or music player or computer right now going, it was this person, you idiots. But alas, WWE can't be bothered to give us those matches any more than 48 hours before Hell in a Cell. So we have 4 matches to pick, which with my current, I believe I am 4 matches behind, if I remember right.
25-7 is my current record, and 21-11 is your current record as we enter Sunday.
If we differ on all of these matches, which I don't think we probably will, there's at least one that I'm 99.9% sure we will not differ on. The other 3, maybe. But if we were to differ on all 4 of these, I could actually pull even. Or I could get buried so freaking far that it's not going to matter what happens the rest of the year. You're going to need to pick your figure or your T-shirt, because I might as well just send it to you.
And just getting ahead, the next event after this would be Full Gear.
Full Gear.
Okay.
Yes, because we are not picking the Impact pay-per-view this weekend because neither of us, at least I don't think you watch Impact.
No.
on a regular basis. I pay attention to it by reading the reports, but alas,
our listeners are laughing at me, like on the thought of me even watching Impact, trying to watch Impact.
right.
They hear weekly.
We give you one more company you try to watch,
right? As I'm racing to catch up. One of these recordings though, you're going to tune in, you're going to download, and you're going to be like, "What? Tom's current?"
Right. In fact, he's even seen shows now that haven't happened. He's seen shows from the future. And MLW is coming back next month too, Tom. So there's something else to add to your list if you get a chance. We'll see.
Don't do this to me.
I enjoyed MLW back in the day. I fell way behind and never did get caught up. But my goal, we'll see how that goes too, is going to be to start with them when they're back here in November as well. But let's talk about the 4 matches we do have here. You are right. Full Gear will be the next. Then we'll have Survivor Series, TakeOver 32, and TLC, unless anything gets added that we're not aware of or that we decide to make picks on. I suppose we could do a Power Struggle, but we've never really done New Japan.
Final Battle, maybe.
Final Battle, perhaps. Yeah, that we haven't had a Ring of Honor pay-per-view since we really got going on this. So that'd be fun to add Final Battle in there too. But let's start with Elias and Jeff Hardy in the only match announced so far that is not taking place inside the Hell in a Cell. And can I just say real quick, and we'll talk about this maybe in the next 3 matches, I really hate the red cell. Give me the black one back, or the cage looking one back. I don't like the red cell.
Did the red cell debut last year with the Fiend and Rollins?
Yeah.
Am I correct? Okay.
I think you're right. And I kind of got it with the Fiend, but the Fiend's not in any of these matches. So get rid of the stupid red cell. I don't like it. What do they care what I like? Elias versus Jeff Hardy. So I believe we made the decision that since I am significantly in the back seat on this, I'll make my pick first on this match. Tom will make his pick first on the next match, and we'll go back and forth like we always have. So Elias versus Jeff Hardy. Elias making his return a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, and smashing the guitar over Jeff Hardy's back. At first, I thought, well, this is really stupid because we've already proven that it wasn't Jeff Hardy that ran him over with the car. But I like that now that seems to be the story, is that Elias doesn't care. He still thinks it's Jeff Hardy, even though everybody keeps trying to tell him that it was someone else. I thought we had determined it was Sheamus, but they don't seem to be wanting to use Sheamus's name. I guess he's not on Raw. So
he is on Raw. He got drafted to Raw.
Oh, that's right. He got drafted to Raw.
Right. Come on. But even there, even you're saying there, I go, oh yeah, that's right. Elias does have there is a reason he should be mad at Jeff Hardy. But like I'm envisioning Elias as this huge baby face because my last remembrance of him is when he overcame King Corbin. So I'm like, why is he coming back as a jerk? It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, Jeff Hardy, air quotes, hit him with a car, which, like I said, we'd already learned wasn't Jeff Hardy for sure. And I was pretty sure we determined it was Sheamus and that had been decided. I mean, they did the pee test and everything. So if you can't pee on national TV and get things figured out, why are you doing it?
If you can't pee on national TV, that is the line of the show.
T-shirt. Look out for it on ProWrestlingTees.com. But or maybe we should just ask why are you doing that and not even try and figure that out. But so Elias comes back. Hardy hits him with the thing. Jeff Hardy then attacks him on Monday night. Elias had a really good music performance, actually. He's got an album coming out this Monday, a legit musical album coming out this Monday. And he played a single from that that I thought was just going to be like taking shots at Jeff Hardy, and it really wasn't. It was an actual song. It's pretty good. Better than I expected, certainly it to be. And I thought it would all be Angle, and it eventually turned into Angle. But, Hardy, of course, gets the best of him. I don't think this is a one and done. So I'm actually changing the result that I wrote down. I jotted all my picks down, and as I was talking here, excuse me, my mind changed on it. So I don't think this is a one and done, and I also don't think you should bring Elias back and immediately have him lose. I mean, you wouldn't want to bring in somebody that you're trying to make be something and have them, lose to a full Nelson in their first flipping match. Anyways, sorry, retaliation or retribution just jumped to my head again. So now I just convinced myself that they'll probably put Hardy over because they shouldn't. But I'm gonna go Elias. After all of that back and forth, I'm gonna go Elias to win this match because I think this feud is going to be more than a 1-match, 3-week feud. I think if you're going to establish Elias, it makes sense to give him a win here.
Elias is my pick as well. A week before we recorded, I told you I wrote all my picks down just out of full transparency, in the sake of fair competition. But yeah, I also think that it's not a one-off match. And I think, again, Pro Wrestling Booking 101 is that the good guy always ends up getting the glory in the end. And if that's the model we're following here, Jeff Hardy doesn't need to win on Sunday night. So, and again, too, if you're bringing Elias back and you want to reestablish him, this is a way to do it. The same thing. And I really hope we don't get a Lars Sullivan match on this pay-per-view, because I could really care less about Lars Sullivan and doesn't do anything for me. They also brought him back again, and in the same vein, to that whole, the attention span is short. They were having guys get beat on SmackDown as they were heading off to Raw. And again, good, because then those guys on SmackDown look stronger as they go forward. So there we are. We're equal. And if Sunday comes and goes and Jeff Hardy wins, you're going to eat your words, Jim.
Yeah, because I have the word Hardy and it's scratched out now, and Elias is written there. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Our next match, I believe, is the Universal title match. Is that correct?
Yes. I should probably change that banner. Sorry, I was.
No, it's all good. Yeah, you were lamenting your choice, and I don't blame you for that.
I was second guessing it, but now it's
yeah. So Universal title, I Quit Hell in a Cell match. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso is next up, and again, I haven't seen their match from Clash of Champions. Again, one of the matches I really wanted to see. Again, I don't see myself going back and finding time for that between now and Sunday, though I do expect to be current on Raw and watch this pay-per-view live. Because the Sunday Night Football matchup, while interesting, isn't like a must-watch match or game for me. Excuse me. So I don't see Jey Uso winning the Universal title here. I think this is the actual blow-off for this feud. I don't know who comes next for Roman on SmackDown, but I've loved everything that they've done with Roman Reigns. And again, because these guys are family in real life, I think that adds that extra special layer of, they're going to really work hard, and I think they're going to use the sell and use the I Quit piece in a really smart way. I liked how they had Roman submit Braun Strowman on SmackDown last Friday, and I think that comes into play here. And because they made a big deal about it. Michael Cole made a big deal about how Roman used the submission to get the choke out or the tap out from Braun, which again is surprising in and of itself, because you would think that Braun would have been protected differently, and he wasn't. But Roman Reigns is my pick here.
Yeah, Jey Uso's winning the No, Jey Uso's not winning. That being said, I think they've done a really nice job of making this story make sense and making it worthy of the Universal title. Normally, I think I said this before Clash of Champions, had anybody told me that Jey Uso would get a 2-month feud with Roman Reigns and be on 2 pay-per-views, including a Hell in a Cell I Quit match, first ever I Quit match inside the cell, I would have asked what drugs you were taking, and asked you to find some help, because no, I wouldn't have thought that could be possible. They've done a nice job with Jey Uso. They really have. And I hope that whatever comes for Jey Uso after this, whether, I had an inkling that maybe he would end up kind of bowing to Roman eventually and joining him, whether that happens or whether, Roman moves on to something else and Jey moves on to something else as well. I hope that they see that Jey has done a really nice job with this, and he's got pretty fiery promos. He's good in the ring. We've always known the Usos were both good in the ring. So kudos to Jey Uso and WWE for making this a whole lot more interesting than I thought they ever could have when it first started back before Clash of Champions. But yeah, Roman Reigns is winning this. Jey Uso's not winning the Universal title. Come on, people. That's, that again, we talk about confidence points, and we do actually make picks with confidence points in that fantasy wrestling league. This is my 4 without any question. I don't even have to think about it being my 4. They'll probably give Uso some good hope spots. Maybe if they do it really well, they'll even get me for a split second to think, holy crap, are they going to do it? They're not. Roman Reigns wins this one. Not a lot more to say about it, other than it's been a whole lot better than I thought. And I think it'll be a good match on Sunday. I think it'll be entertaining to watch. Another Hell in a Cell match. We got 3 of them. WWE title Hell in a Cell match. Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. Raw ended in a very strange way, and it was how it was supposed to this week. I know you haven't seen it yet, Tom, so I apologize for spoiling it for you, but it could play into this in that Randy was in the cell and I think had cut a promo about what he was going to do to McIntyre. McIntyre came to confront him, walked into the cell, looked at the camera, closed the cell door, and they faded and they went to black. Okay, weird. Strange ending. I don't know. This one I feel like I could go either way on. I got to be honest, Tom. And it is my pick first. Yes, it is my pick first on this one. Just wanted to make sure because I have jumped in front of you at points in previous head-to-heads when it wasn't my pick. Get all excited and start talking about things. I can go either way on this, but here's my long-term thought that I think, and I've read some things that have hinted at this that have helped me formulate that I think this is where it's going to go. I think Randy Orton wins the world title here, the WWE title here, finally. We've tried to put it on him. I've tried to put it on him for about 3 months. You tried to put it on him last month with me. I think this is where it happens. Because I think that Orton will be kicking people in the head and holding the world title. And I think Edge will come back and win the Royal Rumble. I think we go to Edge Orton Part 3 at WrestleMania for the title. I don't think that match needs the title, frankly, but that's a different complaint maybe down the road because I think they've built that enough that Edge and Randy Orton should have a WrestleMania. That should be worth the third match, assuming Edge is healthy enough from his injury. But it sounds like he should be by then. I don't think you need the title for that. But having Edge come back at the Rumble, win the Rumble, he had come back at the Rumble last year, have him win this Rumble. There's a lot of good feel-good story you can do in that. Personally, and I'm way ahead of myself here, I would much rather see Keith Lee or Big E win the Royal Rumble and get a world title shot at WrestleMania. But there's rumblings about Edge, and it sounds like something WWE would do more than go with Keith Lee or Big E, who I want to see win them. Again, neither of those guys right now booked on the show, so I don't know why I'm talking about them. But I think Randy Orton wins the WWE title. Will you just do it once for me, Randy, so that I can be right on these frickin' picks?
Well, if you're right, you're going to be happy because I'm picking Drew McIntyre. I just didn't see. I like what you just laid out, and that makes a lot of sense. And it's a really long game. And in my mind, Survivor Series has always kind of been the place to start the build to WrestleMania. So you're a little bit early from my perspective, but that doesn't mean it's not correct. And I don't think that Edge needs to win the Rumble to still get to your end game. But you would, if Randy Orton would have been drafted to SmackDown, then it was a no-brainer that Drew's winning. But them both being on the same brand, again, much like they kept some of the other same guys, again, Rollins and Mysterio being on SmackDown together. Didn't need to do that. Like, I understand freshen it up, but like, come on, guys. Drew's my pick. That's the lowest confidence point I'll give on this one, only because, again, by not being totally current on Raw, I feel like I'm not as connected to the story as I maybe could be or should be. That would maybe help support my pick. But it would be very WWE for them to pull the trigger now and to move the belt.
I think part of why, just to tie a bow on that, maybe, I think part of why I continue to go with Orton is at this point, you've had Orton lose so many times. Like, what is one more loss? Like, why are you doing this again if it's just going to... Now, look, we can ask lots of why is WWE doing things, and we do. That's part of why we have a podcast, right? But, man, if they just beat him one more time, like, why should I ever care that Randy Orton's in the world title picture again? Don't get me wrong. He'll always be around. But, yeah.
WWE is counting on you not remembering.
Right. And again, we're going back to that memory piece that... shoot, my brain works. I've got to turn it off sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to match number 4, the main event. What we feel actually will be the main event of the show on Sunday night, and that's the women's Hell in a Cell match. Again, WWE's done a really good job of providing these opportunities to their female performers. And with the stakes in this match and with the history of this match, regardless of how rushed I feel that it is, and how I didn't like some of the build to this when I thought they were doing such a great job. I think the last 2 months has been on fast forward to a certain extent, and I think they could have done a really like pure sports build with Sasha's rehab and recovery and being in this space if that's where they were headed in the end. It is the time. It's time for me. It's time for Sasha to win the title. So Sasha is going to overcome Bayley, overcome all of the odds, and this is going to be like a celebratory moment for her. And again, going back to what we said earlier, if we can get lucky enough to have Rhea Ripley or someone else from NXT or elsewhere show up on SmackDown, I think that would be a great next challenger for Sasha Banks.
Shoot, I was hoping you'd pick Bayley. Yeah, I think it's Sasha time. Part of me thought, well, this is definitely, and I think it still will. I think this isn't going to be a one-match series. I think it will play out over the next few. I still hope they get to a WrestleMania match. They're going to need to go in separate directions for a little while, because if we get Bayley and Sasha every month between now and Mania, as much as I'll love their matches, I'll be tired of seeing it by then. We got way too long to get to Mania. But maybe you have Sasha win the belt here, Bayley wins it back at some point in the future, and maybe Sasha wins the Women's Rumble to get to, WrestleMania again with those two. I don't know. It's a thought. But Sasha has to win the belt here. And that's part of why I think it'll be the main event, because if Orton ends up winning the title like I think he does, then you don't close the show on Orton, as like that seems like a weird way to close the show. Sasha winning the belt feels like a perfect way to end the show. Overcoming Bayley, Sasha crying with the title. I don't know, maybe you drop confetti from the Thunderdome, which would be a little weird. But yeah, I think Sasha Banks wins this. I think it's going to be a heck of a match. Those two have really good matches usually together, and now you put them in the cell, and if they are the main event, they're going to want to prove that they belong in the main event, which they absolutely do, and that them in the cell is worthy of that. I think it would be the second Hell in a Cell women's match that would main event. I think last year or the year before, Becky and Charlotte, maybe.
Thought Sasha and Charlotte.
Is it Sasha and Charlotte? Okay.
Yeah. I could be wrong too, though. But that's the match I remember.
So I think it would be the second time that they've been in the cell in the main event. Yep, I think it's Sasha Banks. So to recap, Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, the one match that we are different on. So if Randy wins, maybe I can make back a little ground. At least I know that if Drew wins, I don't get completely buried. I just go further on down. And hopefully in future cards, whether it's Full Gear, Takeover, Takeover will only have 5 or 6 matches at most anyways. But Full Gear and Survivor Series and that sort of thing, hopefully there will be some more matches announced ahead of time so we actually have something to talk about and pick. WWE does this every once in a while, and it's frustrating, but sometimes these end up being the shows that are really good because they haven't done a whole lot, and they just go, well, this will make sense, let's throw that out there, and it turns out to be a really good show.
Yeah. And when we come back,
Hurt Business and Retribution too. We'll see.
Yeah, and when we come back next week, we'll each have 3 big things take away from Hell in a Cell. Hopefully, we can bring some AEW talk back to the conversation. It's been a couple weeks since we talked on AEW. They've been doing some good things. I haven't seen them all, but I know kind of some rumblings. So I look forward to me personally getting caught up on that product, and then maybe doing a quick summary or some of the big key things, and then maybe Halloween Havoc thoughts if we're both able to have watched that by the time we record next week.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, it's a pleasure as always. Everybody, thank you for listening to Two Spot Monkeys Live. Stay safe. I know it's getting a little crazy out there. Here's my PSA for the week. Vote. Vote early, vote often. No, that's just in Chicago. Vote early. Vote early or vote on the day of the voting. Don't really care when you vote. That's kind of up to you, what you're comfortable with, what your state's doing, that kind of thing. But get out and vote. Let your voice be heard. Whether you and I might land on the same side of a race or not is not important to me. What's important is that we get out, we exercise our right to vote, we voice our opinions, and we see where the chips lie. And then hopefully, whatever happens, we also remember that we're all in this together. So there's my political stance for the day. Vote and be kind to each other. Tom, it's been a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. Have a great week. Enjoy the shows.
Yeah, you as well. We'll talk next week.
Yep.